Hey everybody, it's GauntletX and welcome back to another premiere draft of Dominar United Alchemy. Unfortunately, I didn't get to pick my pack 1 pick 1 because Arena glitched out on me. It said the draft was ready, everybody was ready, and then waited on 0 seconds. I rebooted Arena and here we are. We've picked a Defiler of Flesh automatically. So I guess we're starting in the black direction. We have Weatherseed Treaty now to head in the domain direction. We have Temporal Firestorm for a Wrath effect, Phyrexian Rager to stick to black. I think I'm going to take a Temporal Firestorm here. Wrath effects are always really powerful and limited. I was going to try to take every, not every alchemy card that I saw, but as many as I could. This, sorry, my intro got completely messed up by Arena glitching. Welcome to a Dominar United Alchemy Premier Draft. This is a Dominar United Premier Draft, except there's one alchemy card in every single pack. So what I was going to do was take as many Dominar United Alchemy cards as I could, as many that are actually somewhat playable and limited as possible. So I could play with all the new cards here today, but pack 1 we didn't get to do that because we got the auto-picked Defiler Flesh. I don't even know what was in our pack 1. And then pick 2, the alchemy card was already gone. Pick 3 here, Coalition Constructs. It's going to be pretty hard to make a tribal deck in this limited format. There's not a lot of creature types that there's a ton of. There are Phyrexians, there's humans, there's stuff like that, but I think I'm going to just take a nice efficient removal spell like Lightning Strike for our red-black deck, based on how we're looking. Mirror's Outrider is a really great finisher if we start getting some domain lands, but I'm just going to stick to taking just great removal, great wraths, board wipes, that kind of stuff. Now we have a Vinesoul Spider as the alchemy card out of this pack, a 2-mana 3/2 with reach, already a good deal, and at the beginning of your end step you put a random land card from your library into your graveyard, making it less likely that you flood out throughout the game. So pretty cool, pretty powerful alchemy card there. We could take that, but we are kind of married to Rakdos right now, especially because we have a double black and a double red card. If you haven't seen my first premiere draft of the Dominar United Alchemy format, in that one I really did end up with a lot of alchemy cards. This time, because I've started with a double black and a double red card, I don't know if I really want to go Jund again. And while Vinesoul Spider is powerful, I don't know if it's super worth that. So I'm going to take Geothermal Bog here. We could also take Rona's Vortex as a blue-black removal spell. It's blue, a black, and 2 for an instant to put a creature on bottom of its owner's library. So that would be nice too, but I'm just going to get the really good mana fixing to help hit these double pip cards, the double black and the double red. Now we have a Knight of Dawn's Light pretty late, great aggressive white card. We have Vohar pretty late as well for Grixis. Start heading blue-black a little bit. That card's really nice. You get to use it as a looter, draw a card, discard a card every turn, and later in the game you can sacrifice it to recast an instant or sorcery from your graveyard. Just give one of your instants or sorceries flashback. Yeah, Vohar's good enough. I think that'll push me to blue-black, especially now that I have a Bog to help mana fix towards a 3-color deck. We've got an Essence Scatter, which is a great efficient counter spell. We have Coral Colony, which is incredible and one of the best decks in the format, but it's a deck I don't want to play because I don't think it's very fun to play with. It's definitely not fun to play against. I'm just going to take Essence Scatter here. There's not a whole lot else in this pack. There's some mediocre removal like Artillery Blast and Smash to Dust. Battlefly Swarm is like fine. I'm just going to take the Essence Scatter. Okay. Red-white dual land, a Crystal Grotto. Your first copy of Crystal Grotto is usually pretty good. It did mess up my mana a lot in my last deck, and that was the first deck that I've used Crystal Grotto with in a long time. So, I'm not super high on the card, because having a colorless source can be actually pretty brutal. It is 1 mana of any color, but if you need that mana of any color, you have to play off-curve. Cast your 4 mana card on turn 5, because you need to tap an additional land now. These red and black cards aren't great except for Pilfer, which is fine though, so I think I'll just take Crystal Grotto. Pilfer's just okay. Another Geothermal Bog seems great. I'm very happy to take that. Pixie Illusionist is okay if you are blue at the core of your deck and your 3 or more colors, but blue could end up being our splash color, where the mana fixing off the Illusionist won't be as helpful. Firenado is fine, but it's not great removal. We already have Firestorm, Lightning Strike, and Essence Scatter, which are all more efficient ways to deal with stuff. So I'm pretty happy to just take the Bog. Now we have a Writhing Necromancer, which can be pretty good if we have a high creature count and we get some of the self-mill cards. so that's pretty fun. Timely Interference is pretty great in blue decks that care about a really high instant and sorcery count. And Take Up the Shield is great in just any white deck. We're not really in white. That being said, pick 9 here. Cavalier, Phalanx, and Take Up the Shield, all great white cards. White's definitely open. We could start speculating in that direction, but kind of just married to my current path with the Rakdos and the blue stuff. Now the best card in this pack is Talus Lookout, although Shadow Prophecy is quite solid as well with 3 or more basic land types. I think I prefer Talus Lookout here. Tangled Islet also would be a fine pick. Speculating towards Domain, another Writhing Necromass seems awesome. We might be pushing to blue-black splash the red here. Impulse is beautiful and an incredibly late Vine Soul Spider. Nobody wants the Vine Soul Spider. I guess people don't like milling themselves, but that's just straight upside when you're just milling your lands. Like, all you're doing is making sure you don't flood out. You're not milling non-land cards with that. But people can be generally opposed to self-mill. Okay, so we're trying to be like blue-black mainly, with the red as a splash. Here's an alchemy card we could actually take and play here. The 3-mana 4/3 skeleton that enters the battlefield tapped. For 2 mana, you're going to perpetually give it -1/-1 and return it to the battlefield, so then it'll be back on the board as a 3/2. And then you can do that one more time, because you can only return it from your graveyard if its toughness is 2 or greater. So a 3-mana 4/3, yeah, it enters tapped, but you can bring it back twice. Once as a 3/2 and once as a 2/1. Pretty good value over the course of a long game if you can trade this card off, so I think it's fine. Choking Miasma would be the pick if that weren't in here, so we could play just a nice Grixis control deck with multiple potential Wrath effects, board wipes, but we're going to take Diminished Return or play around with at least a little bit of the alchemy spice today. Namada Primeval Warden is 100% the pick here. We're not in green at all, but we're just going to take some green duels whenever we see them. This card's absolutely busted. 4 mana for a 3/4 reach is already a decent sized blocker, and its ability to create 1/1s every time a creature an opponent controls dies is just phenomenal. So easily Namada here. If Namada weren't in the pack, Tribute to Urborg would be phenomenal removal for us. Other than that, Urborg Repossession can be a really good value play if we get a green splash in the deck. And Cold Conscript is fine, but it's definitely Namada. Another Vine Soul Spider. There's also a Sprouting Goblin, but green is the splash, so it's going to be hard to hit the kicker on it. Knight of Dusk Shadow should be pretty easy to cast. I think black is going to be one of our main colors. Take a Contaminated Aquifer that helps with blue and black, which are definitely core colors of the deck. So Knight of Dusk Shadow and Contaminated Aquifer feel like the picks here. If this were a green dual land, I'd probably take it over the Knight, but I really like the Knight. Very, very good for its mana cost. 2 mana for a 2/2 menace, and it buffs itself for 2. Just very good for 2 mana. Got a Bone Splinters, but not much token production. We just have Namada for that. Bone Splinters generally not great if you have to sacrifice a creature that you cast earlier for it. If you can sacrifice a token, Bone Splinters is solid, but when you have to 2-for-1 yourself to kill your opponent's threat, that's never where you want to be. Beachfront could help for Domain, but we don't really have any Domain yet, so that'd be speculative. We could take a Soaring Drake, which would be fine. 3 mana, 2/3 flyer. Fits into the curve pretty well here because we only have 1 3-drop. I think that's where I'm at here. I'll take the Soaring Drake. Don't love the Garna there. The double red could be hard. Wingmantle Chaplain, I despise you and I'm not going to join your side anymore. We've got an Impulse. We've got a Contaminated Aquifer. Splatter Goblin, Warhorse, bunch of okay stuff. I'll just take an Aquifer here. Impulse is really nice when you have a lot of instants in your deck, so the fact that we have Essence Scatter and Lightning Strike that are also instant speed makes Impulse pretty tempting, but I already passed up on 1 Aquifer this pack. I don't think I should pass up on too much mana fixing here for our what is gonna be a 4-color deck. Take another Aquifer now. Taking it over a Goblin, Molten Monstrosity, not much there. Much more reasonable place to take Aquifer. Trove Mage, 3 mana for 2/2. When it enters the battlefield, seek an artifact from among the top 10 cards of your library, then shuffle. So if you have like 3 artifacts in your deck, this should be pretty consistent, but we're not really going to end up with 3 or more artifacts, so it's not really going to happen. I guess we are on the blue-red dual land then. Not going to try to splash in a Wrath as well when I'm already trying to splash in a Mata. Don't really want to try to go the full 5-color here. I don't think our mana is going to support it particularly well, especially for a 2-drop. Shadow Prophecy seems great here. We already have 2 Necromass, and the Shadow Prophecy helps fuel the 2 Necromasses we have, as well as the Diminished Returner, by putting some cards in her grave. And now that we're wanting to play some green with Namada, the Choking Miasma goes up in value a little bit, as well as the Shadow Prophecy could actually have 4 out of 5 land types for Domain if we have a forest on board. So we'll take that Choking Miasma on the wheel. Gibbering Barricade is nice in a slower deck that's just trying to block things, especially because it survives the Choking Miasma that we just scooped up. So I think that's what we're taking. I don't think I need an Elf Hamworm. I have 2 Necromasses for big win cons and a Namada. So we've got a few big creatures to try to end the game. This is all nonsense. I guess we'll take a really big blocker, but it's probably not getting ran. We did Wheel the Garna if we really want it, but again, I think it's a little difficult of mana cost here, and we're not doing a dramatically high amount of attacking, so I don't think it'll be excellent in here. But yeah, red is definitely looking like a splash here for Lightning Strike and the board wipe. Wield the Impulse, incredibly happy with that. All right, now I don't have to feel bad about that Aquifer pick at all. See what we get in the final pack. We're hoping to get some green duels. Those are the most popular dual lands, which is kind of rough, because those are the ones that are going to get picked the highest. But we'll see. Maybe we can get one. We could take a Joda's Codex here, which is very slow, but it's a really powerful card draw engine. It's hard to lose a game where you're drawing 2 cards per turn. So the way that you lose after playing a Joda's Codex is if your opponent had an aggressive start and you're on the back foot and then you cast a Codex, then you're probably going to die because you're not adding to the board at all. But if the game state is tied and you're just staring at each other with a big field that's solid. That being said, I like Urg Spawn of Turg a lot, and I'm already trying to splash a tiny bit of green, so I think I'm going to take Urg here. Morale Sergeant is our alchemy card for the pack, which is in red, and red's just a splash, so it's probably not going to fit in well, so just take the Urg instead. What will fit in well is Darrygaz's Whelp, especially if we can get 2 of them. Although I guess Darrygaz's Whelp doesn't do anything by itself. You need at least 1 other dragon in your deck, but in my last alchemy draft of the format, I managed to take 2 Darrygaz's Whelp, which was really good, because then for 4 mana, you're getting a 3/2 flyer that digs out the other Whelp, gives it +1/+1, and puts it in your hand. So a 4 mana 3/2 flyer that puts a 2 mana 3/2 flyer in your hand is a really good deal. That being said, we'd need to get another Darrygaz's Whelp, which is not particularly likely out of just 6 more packs. So it's probably Sunlit Marsh or another Miasma here. Wield the last Miasma. We could actually take like Phyrexian Rager or Sojourner. Actually take Rager for a good value play. Sojourner and Rager I think would be the best 2 picks. Get some more creatures in this deck. Rager gives us more value and Sojourner gives us a better late game blocker and attacker. Sojourner might have been better there. The only problem with taking Sojourner is the green splash is looking pretty difficult right now still. If we had a green duel or 2 at the ready, then Sojourner would like pretty easily be the pick. Without the green duels, I think it's fair to take Phyrexian Rager there. And here's a green dual land, so we're going to have to take that over pretty much anything, which looks like we're taking it over Joda's Codex, which is a bit rough. But 2 really important, really powerful green legends in the deck we're trying to splash in. Wooded Ridgeline helps a lot. That's a land that hits both of our splash colors, our red and our green. And the alchemy card in this pack luckily doesn't really do anything, just conjures a duplicate of the next instant or sorcery you cast into your hand. So kind of like 1 mana or 2 mana to draw a card. Yeah, it's a guaranteed spell, but still not the greatest deal ever. Another red-green duel might be important here. Another Spellchain Scatter. R.I.P. Tolarian Terror is pretty great here, and Karplusan Forest doesn't hit basic land types to help Shadow Prophecy or anything, so it's a little less valuable than just like a straight-up Wooded Ridgeline. So I might be tempted to just take the Tolarian Terror here and get another nice big game-ending threat, nice large creature. I think I am going to do that. I haven't been a super big fan of Pain lands. As important as it is to get some green mana in here. Nihil. Hitting the green is really difficult right now. Probably not worth the Nihil. We also don't have any planes in the deck to get the full 5 domain to really pop off with her. So a Geothermal Bog, an Essence Scatter, or a Jaya's Firenado I think is where we are at here. Got a Wrath. I've got like 2 different board wipes. Hopefully I don't need Firenado and I can just keep making the mana really good. Another Lightning Strike. Solid Splash. Another pretty narrow alchemy card here. This one you need vehicles to really make her pop off. Plus we don't have white mana, so Tiana's not going to happen. Vinewall is not going to help us because green is our splash color. So we're not going to have green mana early game to get our other colors, so it's Scatter or Lightning Strike. I think I prefer Scatter because it's in our main color. And Lightning Strike is a splash here. Rona's Vortex is very, very good interaction, and this will be our first piece of interaction that can get pretty much any creature off the board, because we don't have any just hard removal for once creatures resolve. Once a creature resolves, the most we can do is 5 damage, 3 damage, or -2/-2. So the fact that this can kill anything is very good. Juggernaut Peddler is a pretty funny card, but again, it requires white mana. That being said, there's nothing we're going to play in this pack, so I'm just going to rare draft this. Well, we wield the Goblin Morale Sergeant, but as red is a splash color, it's probably not making the cut. A Shore Up could. I don't think we need instants and sorceries enough to run a Timely, but a Shore Up could be pretty good with these big 5/5s and Namada and Defiler of Flesh. Being able to protect one of those by giving it hexproof out of nowhere can be pretty nice for us. Alright, 1 Timely Interference might not be the worst. Sea Scavenger is also fine in here. We might have 4 land types max, basically scry 4. 13 creatures? Yeah, we might want more creatures. I'll take the Sea Scavenger. Another Talus Lookout quite late is nice. Joda's Codex really late too, which is fine. I still don't love the downside of it, where you're against an aggressive deck and you draw a Codex. That just feels really bad. In those positions, take a Vine Shaper Prodigy, but our mana fixing isn't good enough to play it. Illusionist could definitely help get Namada and Urg into the deck, and they make the Sea Scavenger and Shadow Prophecy stronger. Alright. Interesting deck here. Kind of blue-black at the core, splashing in a bit of red, a bit of green. The Firestorm is going to be quite difficult to cast, but hopefully Illusionist helps on that front. And we have 4 red dual lands, so we have 5 red dual lands, so we have 5 red sources even if we don't put a mountain in the deck, which can be pretty helpful for that. So 5 red sources and an Illusionist and a Grotto can make it a little more reasonable. I only get to cut 4 cards because I spent a lot of picks on lands here. We're sitting at 17 creatures and 10 non-creatures. For a more controlling deck that has 2 different ways to wipe the board, this is a little bit of a high creature count, so I think I can cut some of my most mediocre creatures for now, which is Sea Scavenger, Barricade maybe. Those are the most mediocre creatures. What are the most mediocre spells? I really like all the spells. I like pretty much everything that's left in the deck here. So the question is just what cards are the most counterintuitive or just do the least amount of work for this deck specifically. It's probably the Sea Scavengers. I do have a lot of 3-mana cards. I kind of do like the Barricade. I like the 2/4 body on that. Maybe cut this Soaring Drake. We're not really trying to win quickly with some flyers and getting evasive. Maybe cut one of the Talus Lookouts. We've got a lot of black permanents for Defiler of Flesh, so that could be pretty spicy. So maybe just cut one of the blue ones. I do really, really like the non-creature spells in the deck, so I kind of want to do like this kind of thing. Cut a Drake, Talus Lookout, We're very on the ground here. Definitely not a Flyers deck, but a lot of solid removal, a couple potential board wipes, and some solid counter spells. Looks like a pretty solid deck. I think this is where we're going to land on it. We're looking at 12 black cards, 10 blue cards, and 2 red and green. So black and blue, we need a lot of those sources. Hopefully we drafted enough duels that the mana looks pretty nice. 8 black sources does sound pretty nice to me. As for blue sources, looks like 7, which is about right. Tiny bit more black than blue. Yep, 8 black sources, 7 blue sources. Pretty good counts on the main colors. As for red and green, we have 5 red sources, which we are going to need a lot with the Firestorm, and we can't cut any of these because they're all dual lands anyway. And then 3 green sources for our 2 green cards, each of which only requires a single green mana. I think Magic Arena actually did a pretty good job on the auto-suggesting of this mana base. 8 black sources, as it's the most prevalent color, 7 blue at the second most, and then our splash colors, we have 5 red for the double red splash and 3 green for the single green splash. That seems pretty reasonable to me. I think we'll call it a deck. Alright, here we have the final deck list of what we'll be running today. It's going to be a blue-black deck primarily, with a splash for 2 red cards and 2 green cards, so kind of the biggest bombs in the deck being the splashes. Urg is nice because it sets up our draws and wins the long game by becoming a very big creature, also just being a brick wall for your opponent to attack through with 5 toughness there. Namada is probably the best rare in the whole deck, 4 mana for a 3/4 reach, and every time a creature an opponent controls dies, we get a 1/1 Saproling, so we take over the game really quickly with a very big board state. It's also a solid-sized body all by itself. In red, we've got that Temporal Firestorm, so that we have a board wipe that could be pretty disastrous. It can even become nearly one-sided. We can definitely kick this for blue and phase out one of our creatures before we deal 5 to everything. And if we have a Pixie Illusionist on the board or a Crystal Grotto on the board, we could also kick it for white and potentially phase out 2 of our cards before we wipe the board, so that's pretty absurd. We also have Miasma to clear out some small creatures, so pretty controlling suite of non-creature spells here. So we're just trying to interact with everything our opponent plays, keep that board empty, scatter their big plays, lightning strike their cheap plays, that kind of stuff, and then take over the game with one of these big scary creatures like Namada, Defiler of Flesh, or Tolarian Terror and Writhing Necromances being the common ones. So pretty sick looking blue-black kind of control, very splashy deck here. We'll see how it plays as we head into the gameplay. Our opponent is going to go first here. We have the mana to cast anything in our hand, and the Impulse on 2 mana lets us hit the next land, so I am going to keep this. It does look a little greedy, but again, Impulse digging 4 cards deep to help us find our 3rd land is pretty huge, and the fact that even though we have only 2 lands, we can cast everything in the opening hand, means I think it's a pretty solid keep. We're going to have plenty spells to cast throughout the game. Don't love seeing the Valiant Veteran. That's a good soldier tribal card, and even from their graveyard they can exile it to put a counter on each soldier they control, so even if I lightning strike it, it could matter later. That being said, I'm probably going to lightning strike it, but for now I'm going to hold up the Impulse and wait until their end step. I'll take 2 damage as kind of a cost to see what they're going to cast this turn. And this way we're also holding up an Essence Scatter if they somehow have like a really good 3 mana creature. Oh dear. Arvad Weatherlight Smuggler. Death Touch Lifing at the beginning of your end step. If a creature died this turn, gets +X/+X, where X is the number of creatures that died this turn. It's perpetually. This ability also triggers in the graveyard. That's interesting. That's not good for me. I think I'm going to Lightning Strike that instead of the Valiant Veteran. Since at least that's not a soldier, so at least Valiant Veteran isn't doing anything just yet. Now I can still hold up Essence Scatter and hold up Impulse. I think that's fine. I should have played the Island. I instinctually played the Swamp and wanted to play Phyrexian Rager, but since I have the Impulse Essence Scatter combo, I should have just played Island into Illusionist, because then I get to play Illusionist during my turn and still hold both of those up. That was a loose play there. I acted before I thought and immediately was like, I'm going to slam down Rager, and then was like, wait, no, we're not. But I didn't realize that until I'd already played my land per turn. Namada is definitely the pickup here. We just need to draw any land to cast Namada, because we already have the Crystal Grotto to be the green source that we need. Same with Firestorm. Crystal Grotto can be the second red source for us. That's looking great. And if we get Illusionist on the board, which I suppose we will now, I know I can cast Namada next turn. I'm going to cast Rager. I'm not particularly worried about my opponent playing a really good creature next turn, because I do still have Arona's Vortex to clear anything out that's on the board. So we'll be mana efficient there and just get ready to drop Namada next turn. Especially since our opponent didn't cast anything or play a land last turn. So if they miss a land drop again, they're probably not playing anything here. Now we'll attack both, and then I get to play Forest into Namada. I should actually play Namada pre-combat, awkwardly enough. Let's hold up the blue source for Rona's Vortex as an unsummon, just in case. Obviously, ideally, you would cast this kick to put something on bottom of your opponent's library. But what's really nice about the card is the flexibility of always being able to just hold up that just single mana in case something really bad happens. The really sad thing about Rona's Vortex, though, is it only bounces opponent's cards. So I can't return my Namada to save it. And it's the one way it's worse than unsummon, sadly. Oh. I mean, I think we're winning the race here. I'm going to use Impulse main phase in case I hit a castable creature. Tolarian Terror is not quite castable, but I think it's the pickup. Yeah, I mean, I could cast it if I hold nothing up here. I do still have Rona's Vortex, that's okay. Yeah, I still have the Vortex if something gets through my Essence Scatter. And obviously I've got the whole board wipe too off the Firestorm. Captain's Call. Okay, that is very good with the Valiant Veteran. 3 2/2s onto the board. I'm 1 mana off from kicking this. Actually, no, I have to use Illusionist for the red, and then I'd be 1 mana off from kicking it. Our opponent can't really attack into us yet, so... I'm going to play Necromask because I'm not going to want to scatter anything since I'm just going to Firestorm anyway. Later. I guess now I'm trying to double kick it, so I'm trying to get to 9 mana. Yeah, I guess maybe I should have just passed turn. I probably should have just passed the turn there. Because I can't save both of these creatures until I'm at 9 mana. I don't want to sit here waiting forever to Firestorm my opponent. Plus I should have done that post-combat, because my opponent was tapped out, so I could have found a pretty nasty Rona's Vortex play there. Where they go for like a triple block with all the 2/2s onto Tolarian Terror, and then I kill the Valiant Veteran and make all those 1/1s. I can still go for that kind of play this turn, and since I'm not going to have the mana to kick the Firestorm even once right now, probably the best play with how I've chosen to cast my spells thus far. Definitely not the correct lines earlier these turns, but now that we are where we are, let's just send in the squad. Alright, opponent is tapped out here, so I can do that same thing where I Vortex the Valiant Veteran and get a nasty 2-for-1 here. Getting rid of the Valiant Veteran, the Warhorse, and the Soldier. Yep, and I can hold up Essence Scatter, and the Auto Tapper's doing well. One thing I definitely dislike about this format is that the auto tapper is not great, so I feel like it slows me down a lot. Because I always have to just hover over and be like, alright, is the auto tapper leaving up my Essence Scatter mana? Because a lot of times it'll just not do that. If your Essence Scatter mana is off of basic lands, it just really loves holding up your non-basic lands. So if I had like a green-black duel and a black-white duel and then like 2 islands, it would want to tap both islands. Bone Splinter's pretty great with the double Captain's Call our opponent's got here. This does make our Firestorm better if we hit a land, though, because now there is only one really important creature to save. The other one got removed. Alright, Arvad is really big if they ever get Graveyard Recursion. They'd have to trade their whole board into Tolarian Terror, and I still can't kick Firestorm, so... Sure. I don't need... Actually, I do need Illusionist here. I want to cast Lookout and still be able to hold up Essence Scatter. It's going to be the most obvious Essence Scatter in the universe, because otherwise I would have just... attacked for 1 here, but... Even if it's obvious, make sure that our opponent doesn't resolve a creature next turn. Like now if they have a Sheoldred in hand, if they play around Essence Scatter, then I don't have to face against Sheoldred. That enters tapped, so that's just actually pretty fine by me. For now. Derrygaz Whelp unkicked, that's also fine. See if the music's okay. It sounds fine. Arena will often loop 2 songs at once on my computer for some reason, which does not sound great. 13 life, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. It's a little risky if they have Heroic Charge. +2/+1 everybody. I think I want a Chump Blocker back. Okay, let's win the fight against the Whelp. Now I can cast Returner and still hold up Scatter, and I have 2 blockers up now. Exile the Talus Lookout. And a Toxic Abomination. They're going to lose a couple life here. We're down to 7. Our board state is a little better than theirs, and we have more cards in hand. Feels like a winning game here. Knight of Dusk Shadow is a very good draw. I think Returner is a great attack. Terror is a fine attack. I kill Returner in a 1/1 in the trade. You can play this nice and slow and just trade the Returner in. There was no reason not to attack with Illusionist there. Playing very loose, but it's all good. We're in the chill phase. Just a month of non-competitive variety drafts. Next month though, November, we've got the Arena Open, Dominaria Original Dominaria Sealed, and Brothers of Wars launch, so we'll be pretty competitive with that set. Alright, 1-0 to start it off. The reason I didn't immediately resurrect the skeleton there is that that ability is instant speed, and I don't have the mana to resurrect it and hold up Essence Scatter because I needed to use my Crystal Grotto. Looks like my arena's glitching out again. This is pretty much what happened when I joined the draft that forced me to lose my pack 1 pick 1. And it just kind of sat on a loading screen. This time it's just going to sit on a completely black screen. So I guess I'll reboot Arena here real quick and we'll head into round 2. Alright, here we are in game 2 on the play. No blue source is kind of rough, but Crystal Grotto does get us there. We're just going to have to play off curve. Play our 2 mana cards for 3 mana. A little rough here, but hopefully Impulse can hit a natural blue source and we'll be all good there. Firestorm? Yeah, the mana in our deck in general is a bit sketchy. Wooded Ridgeline? I like that lets us cast the Firestorm. The second Forest's a bit redundant, but I think I'm still going to keep it. We're going to have to play the Forest next turn, though, so that I can actually afford Scatter or Impulse. The best part is it's basically impossible for my opponent to play around Essence Scatter here, because I just have a Crystal Grotto. But as soon as I cast an Impulse, they're going to be like, oh, they're a blue deck. And now they could play around Essence Scatter. Alright, no lands here, so pretty happy I kept that Wooded Ridgeline. Rona's Vortex seems solid, or an Impulse. Opponent's on Boros. Vohar's good too. Vohar lets us recast anything from grave. I think Firestorm's like the best card in this matchup. We probably just lean into that. I guess I just take another Impulse, so I have something to do next turn. Because I'm playing a tapped land, which means I can't play Returner yet. I need 4 mana to cast Diminished Returner, because I don't have a second black source without Crystal Grotto. So this way I can Impulse again if I don't have to Essence Scatter this turn. I'll scatter that, I think. It's just a good value play. Although I am trying to get them to have a bunch of stuff out for Firestorm. This feels like a fine scatter. Oh, now I have 2 Wraths. Now the scatter there feels really bad. But hey, now we can slam down a Diminished Returner and not feel bad about that at all. Okay, opponent is not Boros. They are white, red, black, and blue. So they are not red-white aggro like I thought it was going to be. They're going to battle him the Returner. I'm incredibly fine with that. If you can get a 1-for-1 trade into a Diminished Returner, that's just an excellent deal, because this is 3 cards in 1. So if they spend a card each time I play this, that's just going to be incredible for us. Okay. I think we just attack in and shore up if they block. I mean, we don't even need to shore up if they block, we could just let it die because it's going to come back. We have 6 mana, I could Firestorm unkicked. Not the greatest here. Probably just holding up Impulse and shore up. Miasma doesn't do anything because their creature has 3 toughness. And we can't afford Necromass Meteorite. Yeah, let's shore up here, I think. I think that's worth it. Stop some of the value that spell gives them. Now Meteorite's just a 5 mana rock here. There's the Necromass mana. I guess we're just dropping that. Another kind of strange game here. Big slow one. Slapping a bunch of dorks on board. But, I mean, that's kind of the deck we drafted. It's a pretty slow deck again. A lot of Dominar United ends up this way. Oh, they've got their own Wrath. Okay. Pretty much a 1-for-1, because again, Returner comes right back. Ooh, Namada. Oh. Yeah. Hope they don't have Essence Scatter off their 1 blue source. They do not. They have a stop set during their upkeep for some reason. For Evil Namada? Yeah, you got it. Get to Ember Coiler. Beginning of your pre-combat main phase, you may discard a card. If you do, seek a card with greater mana value and exile it till the end of your next turn. You may play that card. Oh my god, at the beginning of your pre-combat main phase, discard a card, draw a guaranteed non-land card. This guaranteed has to cost at least one, even if you discard a land. Yeah, that's pretty good. Not a fan. Not a fan. Am I gonna 1-for-1 a Choking Miasma into that? Maybe. To the point where maybe I don't play Returner here. So if I play Returner, I'm gonna kill it with Miasma. And then it's never coming back. Yeah, let's Impulse. Tolarian Terror? Lightning Strike, though. I'm gonna take Lightning Strike so I don't have to Miasma one creature. They cast a combat trick here, it's gonna live because of the prowess. But even if it didn't have prowess, I can't think of many combat tricks that wouldn't save that from 3 damage. Alright, they're probably down to just removal spells now, which means they're gonna have to spend something on Returner, or just take 2 every turn. Illusionist is a great draw. Get us some more threats. Alright, pass turn. Talus Lookout's a really, really good one as well. I have to use Illusionist to cast it. Probably worth it. Because even if I end up board wiping or my opponent ends up board wiping, I do draw a card off the Talus Lookout. Micromancer, that is a very good card. They could have a Cut Down, they could have a Bone Splinters if they want removal. If they have tricks, they could have a Shore Up. Oh, Urborg Repossession as well. I forgot that card's 1 mana. That's disgusting with Micromancer, good lord. Yeah, Repossession's one of the best cards in the format. It's just such a good value play. Gains you some life, picks up your 2 best cards out of your graveyard. And you can tutor it off a Micromancer, which I didn't even know, but that is really good. Well, we're hitting for 6 a turn in the sky, and there is nothing they can do about that, so let's just start doing that. And here's a big Menace Dork. And if I cast another black permanent spell, then I can give +1/+1 Menace to one of my creatures till end of turn. Alright, there's Phyrexian Rager. We'll draw them a card, and we'll also lose them a life. Vesuvan Mist. I really don't like that card. That card got me really bad in my first Premier draft of this Alchemy format, and it's gonna hit not as hard this time. Kind of strange they chose the Defiler instead of a Flyer. But yeah, that is a thing. I surprisingly have the mana to cast Defiler and Urg this turn, so sure. And just get an extra damage in the sky here. So here goes the Ember Coiler seeking out a 3 mana value or better card. It's a Danitha, Benalia's Hope. Luckily, they can't really just tap out and play that because then they die in the sky. Either one of these flyers is lethal. Do have the mana to kick the Temporal Firestorm once. If my opponent somehow deals with the flyers, gets into the better board state. So there's a Wrath. As they cast their instants and sorceries, they now get to tap 2 creatures to draw a card. They can also buff the board, give it vigilance. Alright, they're just trying to find lethal here, which is not going to happen. So we are all good to win the game in the sky next turn. They only have 2 mana up. Yep, they are going to scoop it up, and we are going to start this draft off 2-0. This has definitely got to be a mulligan. It's a 1-land hand, no blue source. So let's see what our 6-card hand has to offer. Pretty great mana here. We've got an Urg that we can't quite cast, but Illusionist can help with that. Got an Impulse, a Knight. I think I have to get rid of the Knight of Dusk's Shadow here. I definitely need all this mana. Yeah. I think that's what I'm doing. Better to just play Illusionist turn 1. If I play Illusionist turn 1, I'm not even converting mana for anything next turn anyway. If I go tap land turn 1, I could potentially Impulse turn 2 if need be. What is this? When it enters the battlefield, look at the top 7 cards of your library. If a card among them has flying, it gains flying. Same is true for all the other effects. So a 2 mana 2/2 vigilance. Okay, that's not bad. That's pretty much common power level. I need to play Aquifer turn 1. That was the wrong land to play. That way I could have played Illusionist and the other tap land this turn. Sloppy gameplay. Sloppy gameplay today for sure. My chair is mad at me every time I move around. I might just Impulse now. Now that I can't Illusionist and play the other tap land, I might Illusionist or Impulse and see if I can grab an untapped land for later. Or a cheap spell. Cavalier, yeah, we're getting aggroed out. It's just Boros over here. They do have a blue off Molten Tributary. But this is going to be a rough mashup for us. Our deck is pretty slow, and definitely the way we've played, our starting hand is quite slow. I might even need a Barricade here. We don't have double black for Defiler, unless I use Illusionist. Which I guess I could. Might even need the Island. Guarantee the 4 mana to get an Amada on board. Awkward, I think I am taking the Island. Now I kind of have to just play an Illusionist and pass. Yep, our mana's really not worked out here, but there's definitely an aspect of shooting ourselves in the foot here. Part of it was self-imposed. The fact that I didn't play Aquifer turn 1 instead of Ridgeline was a pretty big punt. It would have been turn 2 Illusionist, Wooded Ridgeline as a much better play. We'd have the mana ready then on turn 3. We could have played Urg this turn and had an actually decent blocker, which would have given us a lot more time to try to draw out of this game. Yep, I think this game is just going to be an example of how something as simple as the sequencing of your lands can very quickly lead to your downfall. Again, better sequencing of lands would have had an Urg on board last turn to block the 3/2 and start setting up our draws. But since I didn't do that, I probably dead pretty quickly. I don't really want to play Namada till I have Shore Up, but I might not be able to wait. If I cast an Urg this turn and play a Geothermal Bog, I have 2 blockers. Urg blocks the Enlist card. I take 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. I guess I could wait, but then I'm just going to die 2 turns from now anyway. This is probably a game I have to just drop Namada and pray they don't have removal. Although the odds of them having removal are just dramatically high. Oh, that was the wrong color. Well, oops. Urg's the other double color. It's double black, not double green. I guess we are playing Namada this turn then. Okay, we're dead. Yep. The other option would have been that I use Pixie Illusionist to get the swamp there, the black source, to play Urg this turn. That way when I had Namada on board, I could shore up that turn as well, because I would have played Geothermal Bog if I did that. But then my Illusionist would have been tapped here, my Urg would have been dead, and I'd be at 5 life. So I would play a Namada holding up a shore up on a board state where I have 5 life against this, so I wasn't going to win either way, but that was really bad sequencing yet again, and it is going to cost us the game here. So again, we definitely stood a chance there if I had sequenced to where I could play Pixie Illusionist turn 2 alongside getting the tap land out of the way on turn 2. Then I would have had Urg a turn sooner, which would have made it easier to play Namada and hold up a shore up earlier as well. Also would set up the draws, and with Urg potentially setting up the draws, we can dig towards our Wrath effects, which is how we would win that game. The only way we were going to win this game is if we could draw into a Choking Miasma or a Jaya's Fire 5 mana, or yeah, 5 mana, 5 damage to everything thing. We needed one of the board wipes there, and we could have gotten at least one more turn to find the board wipe had I sequenced my mana much better there. So 2-1 as we head into game 4. All right, here we are now, round 4. We don't have a green source for this Urg, but we can cast the Scatter, the Lookout. I'm gonna keep it, and hope we can find one of our green sources for the splash later. Well, there's a Crystal Grotto. That'll let us get the Urg out turn 4. Yeah, if I play it here, I can hold up Essence Scatter. So we'll get the tap line out of the way. Oh, wow. We just hit the forest. I still can't cast Urg till turn 4 because Crystal Grotto taps for colorless by itself. But it is interesting. It is still a solid draw, I think. Yep, can't play the Urg till turn 4 anyway, so play another tap land and pass, holding up Scatter still. Not going to scatter the 2-1 flyer, I can deal with that with Lookout. Scatter a scarier threat later. Alright, opponent's going to draw a card off their Timely Interference, digging for their land for turn, and they do not find it. If I can play Lookout and hold up Shore Up in the same turn, then I can kill this Mystic without losing a creature, so that's the plan there. For now, we'll Urg. Next turn, I'll go Island, Lookout, hold up, Shore Up. They have to discard the hand size stuck on the 2 mana there. They're definitely blue-red spells. They discarded a Spell Chain Scatter. They might have an Essence Scatter here for the Lookout. Be a little sad. Looks like they don't. That is very nice for us. Actually kind of okay with Lookout dying here because we get to set up our draws and our opponent's only threat is off the board. So then I can keep Shore Up for my bigger, better creatures. And that will also fill my grave with either a land or a spell. The spell would make Terror cheaper, land would make Urg actually attack. So I'm actually just letting that attack there. Or letting that die there. And Namada's the draw. We get to cast Namada and hold up Shore Up. Seems big. Seems big. We'll do it pre-combat in case for some reason they want to chump block this 2 damage. They probably don't, but maybe. There's the red source. They now have the blue and the red. They're going to Fires of Victory, which is enough to kill Namada, so I'll protect it with Shore Up. And they're just going to scoop them up there, just miss their land drops too long. And we're going to be 3-1 now in the Dominar United Alchemy draft. On the play again for game 5. This time I can't accidentally play a non-blue land turn 1. I can't sequence the Illusionist incorrectly. Forest coming up. Let's If I draw any of my green cards, I don't even need the Illusionist on board to drop them down. And cast Defiler turn 4. Ooh, Wandering Treefolk is a very strong card. Ooh, let's see if I can cast Urg correctly this time. So we need this tributary to be a swamp. It's black, black, green, not green, green, black. It feels green, green, black to me. That's why I really messed up with Urg 2 games ago. It feels green, green, black because it's all about lands. Power equal to the lands in grave. You can sacrifice lands to do things. I guess it's about graveyard, it's about sacrificing, and it's about milling yourself. Those are all black abilities. If they want to Gaia's whatever to kill my Urg, I think that's fine. Alright, they're just going to scout the wilderness here. See what we get. That is not a land. That is a good late game play. I'm going to keep it. Now we once again need a swamp. Or Defiler of Flesh. Opponent is on blue, white, green, and red. Probably 5-color domain, somewhat similar to us. This Treefolk's ability only costs them 4 mana now. If they want to start just drawing a bunch of creatures and overwhelming us with card advantage, the Treefolk is going to be very good at doing that. Tolarian Geyser, bounce the Defiler of Flesh and they draw a card. Choking Miasma is the draw. That doesn't kill anything right now. I don't think I actually want that. Wooded Ridgeline. Now I know I can Firestorm next turn unkicked. So if my opponent just slams down some creatures, Firestorm would be good, but they know I have a Defiler in hand, so it's going to be pretty obvious if I just cast nothing this turn. So I feel like I have to just replay Defiler, otherwise our opponent has a really good option to play around a board wipe. Or to play around interaction. Like if they see us hold 4 mana up and not play Defiler of Flesh, they can just play around interaction by being like, okay, I'll just use Treefolk and draw a card. And then we're just falling behind in card advantage. This way we might get them to actually commit some stuff to board here, rather than being able to use their mana sink yet. Ooh. If they bite down, Firestorm's starting to feel pretty good. I actually do want this land. I want to get to the point where I'm kicking the Firestorm potentially, which means I need to draw 1 more land after this. So I think I'm going to pass the turn here rather than casting a Necromass. And this is still kind of obvious I have something, but at least it's not just revealed information that I have a 4-drop creature or something like that. So yeah, if I can hit an untapped land next turn, then I can do the Firestorm kicked once to protect Urg. Since I have every color that my deck needs on board, I can let the Illusionist die. Take 2 here. With fingers crossed our opponent commits to the board here. If they just hold their mana up for interaction and Wandering Treefolk's mana sink, it's going to be rough. That is definitely not what we're interested in. But it would definitely be a reasonable line from them. They see us hold up 6 mana here, they know we have something to do. Either with that mana or we have a good reason not to play cards. Ooh, that's rough. Yeah, and Antuco Slicer, they return a card from their grave to hand, so they're going to get value off of it even if I immediately kill it. They're going to pick up their bite down, but they can't afford to cast it this turn at least. Alright, let's see if we can hit that next untapped land. Lightning Strike. Hmm. That's spicy enough to let Urg die. I was gonna say, even if I mill it, there's no guarantee I hit an untapped land. Yeah, I might just let Urg die now. Keep a lightning strike. Alright, we just gotta hope they don't have a negate here. I think like Urg and Wandering Treefolk are both like on par. So then we're trading like Illusionist for Sentry and Firestorm for Slicer. This feels fine. This feels like moderately in our favor. Bounce their Slicer, that's devastating. Okay. That is tremendously bad. Because now they get to recast the Slicer. Pick another card back up from their grave, and they have the Black Source, so they get a card from our grave as well. Oh no. If they immediately recast Slicer, then they only get a card from their grave, so at least it's not a kicked Slicer. Although if they pick up their blue spell, then this game's over. They're just gonna like alchemy combo us out of it. Because they could pick up their Vesuvan Mist, and then they could keep targeting their own Slicer and getting copies of it in their hand by kicking a Vesuvan Mist on their own Slicer. Okay, they picked the Wandering Treefolk though, so we know they're not trying to like go infinite with Slicer. And I can Lightning Strike the Treefolk when they cast it. Okay, I thought the game was like entirely over, but looks like we do still have an actual just reasonable chance. I think our opponent is in the lead here. They have the higher life total and more cards to play around with. But the game's not in the bag. It's not predestined yet. Geyser's fine. I can still replay this. They do draw a card off of it, which isn't ideal, but at least I do not lose the Necromass permanently. Okay, we are definitely killing that Treefolk before they start drawing cards off of it, especially because they're at the point where it only costs 3 mana. They can do it 3 times per turn. That would be horrifically disastrous. Vohar's really nice in this deck because it's like an additional copy of a board wipe later if we need that. So that is that's pretty dang spicy. Unfortunately, with only 1 Black Source, we can only play 1 Necromass. But I think even if I had the mana to play Vohar, I'd rather just try to keep it in hand here so our opponent can't play around us recasting a board wipe. That's suspicious. I guess they can bite down and 2-for-1 themselves to kill this. This thing has Death Touch, so yeah, they have to play 2 cards to kill it. So I'll go for the block. Oh, is this Urborg Repossession now? Oh my god. The graveyard value cards in this format were nuts already. Add a Nantuko Slicer into the mix, and our opponent is going to grind us into oblivion here. I am very tempted to just kill the Wandering Treefolk right now, but if I do, they're just going to get it back with Nantuko Slicer, so I have to wait before I board wipe anyway. The problem with that, though, is next turn our opponent gets to kick an Nantuko Slicer and still have the mana up to draw cards off Treefolk, at least like 1 card. So we're going to drop the Necromass, holding up the Shore Up, and pass, and hope that all of our opponent's mana just goes to dumping everything that they return onto the board, rather than drawing more cards off Treefolk, and then we can board wipe them again to really get them for that. If my opponent plays around a board wipe, then we're in a horrific position, because they're going to draw 2 cards to hand off Slicer, draw a bunch of additional cards off Treefolk, yeah. Yeah, but if they just go for Treefolk value, we are locked out of this game. Opponent has already drawn 4 more cards than us. The gap in card advantage is pretty monstrous here, because not only has our opponent drawn more cards than us off cards like Tree Folk and Prodigy, they've also recurred cards off Nantuko Slicer or Borg Repossession. So our opponent is far ahead in terms of card advantage. We are falling tremendously far behind. At least they put a lot of stuff on the board, so I don't have to feel embarrassed to cast a board wipe here. Which might just be the play, and then I can scatter. Ooh, scattering the Slicer is really good. I don't actually have the mana to recast the board wipe this turn, though. So they get a turn to do whatever they can to play around the board wipe. They have 5 power on board. They can't kill Necromass through a Shore Up. And they can't kill it unless they block with everything. I don't think that I would cast Shore Up if they block with everything. I would just be like, okay, I'll kill your whole board. That way I can hold Shore Up to protect Vohar to guarantee the board wipes coming on next turn. But yeah, now that they see Vohar, they know a board wipe's coming, they're just going to use Tree Folk like 3 times. Make sure they have a massive hand to reestablish a board state afterwards. Phyrexian Espionage kicked. That's brutal. Pretty unfun. There goes Shore Up. I'm holding Scatter because this Slicer's just such a tremendous target for Essence Scatter. Vidalian Tidemage too. Every time they hit us with a creature, they get a copy of it into their hand. I guess I could have scattered that so they wouldn't have a Tree Folk in their hand this turn, but then they just Nantuko slice the Tidemage back to their hand anyway. We are so tremendously dead here in a ton of ways. Our opponent has drafted just a brilliant deck in terms of card advantage. There are so many ways our opponent is getting massively ahead of us. They're drawing extra cards off Tree Folk, they're conjuring duplicates into their hand with Tidemage, they're recurring cards with Slicer and Repossession, they're drawing cards with Espionage. Yeah, I mean, this game is really over. Our only chance is that somehow our opponent mills themselves out. It's going to take quite some time, so this may be a long one here. I'm going to stick in it for now, but I think it would be 100% fair to just concede at this point. Our odds of victory have got to be 5% or lower. Almost definitely lower. Opponent is just miles ahead. Tree Folk, Tidemage, and Nantuko Slicer, all phenomenal value plays out of the alchemy, the new alchemy cards. It looks like this game might not take that long, because it does look like our opponent is just going to find the kill on us pretty quickly. Thanks to just being able to keep bouncing the Necromass here, getting more copies in their hand. Yeah, we're actually going to die pretty fast. So at least there is that. They do only get 1 duplicate per attack. Even if 3 creatures hit me, they only get to put 1 in their hand. So that's kind of nice. Probably do draw a discard. I don't even know what I'm digging for. But we discard the Returner. Because I don't have the double black for it yet anyway, and I can recast it from grave if I do. This makes Necromass 1 mana. One, two, three, 4, 5, 6, 7. I do have the mana to recast my board wipe, but if I do that, I don't get to hold up Essence Scatter, and my opponent drops Slicer and wins off that. I could just die here. by choosing to do this. Alright, yeah, I guess I just die here then. Unfortunate. But I was going to say, I'm 100% losing that game if I board wipe that turn. Because if I board wipe, I'm tapped out. I sack Vohar to play the 5 mana spell, so that's all of my mana tapped. I have 2 scatters in hand, but then my opponent just plays an Nantuko Slicer, gets back the Tide Mage and a Tree Folk. Actually, no, gets back the Tide Mage and 1 card from my graveyard. So they'd probably get probably a Necromass. It'd be like a 1 mana 5/5 for them. And yeah, I would just end up dying anyway. Because then it goes to my turn. I have 2 Essence Scatters against lethal on board. So went for the Necromass there and seeing if there was any way to survive their attack. We could like block there, take 4, go to 1. And then since I've got the scatters up, maybe I top deck a land. We could even tap Vohar to make it more likely we hit an untapped land. Then, with 9 mana, I could spend 2, sack Vohar, wipe the board, and hold up 1 scatter to scatter the Slicer. But then they would still have more cards in hand because Tide Mage would trigger again. Yeah, that was a brutal one. Opponent's deck was very, very nice, and it's going to put us into 3-2 now. All right, here we go. We are in game 5 now. Game 6, we're 3-2. Definitely need to hit 1 land here, but if we do, we have Namada. Ideally, we hit an island, because that'll help hit Vohar, and a lot of the cards in our deck are blue. We do hit an island. It's an island mountain, so we'll play that this turn. Got a pretty nasty curve here. Diminished Returner into Namada coming up. Ooh. And an Urg later on. So even if Namada is not long for this world, we've got another pretty good legend coming down. Playing against blue-red, that's a color that's a huge fan of Essence Scatter. Although if they tap for Impede Momentum here, they do not have a blue source up, which means we know Namada doesn't get scattered. So I'm going to cast Namada here. The only thing in blue-red that can kill this Namada that I can think of is an uncommon, 3 mana for 4 damage to it. I do not think they have a common that can kill Namada right now off of double blue and a red. There's Lightning Strike for 3 damage, that's not enough to kill it. Alright, so Namada's out for at least 1 turn. Don't have a shore up to back it up, not a huge fan of that. But I think we do just send it in. And then probably cast Urg. Although we could play around a scatter by playing like a Barricade, but Barricade doesn't really impact the game at all, so if they don't have scatter, we're basically doing nothing for the turn. Yeah, we just play Urg. If they've got scatter, they've got it. Alright, Urg resolves. They had some instant in their hand, but they didn't cast it there. Maybe a Lightning Strike. Or they have a board wipe. It's not the absolute end of the world because Returner comes back, and now I can hold up Scatter, Lightning Strike, and Shore Up. But losing Namada and Urg there is not super fun. Alright, Returner's back. Don't have the blue mana to cast Vohar and still hold up a Shore Up. I do that with Barricade though, so I guess we'll do that. And say Vohar's not really putting any extra pressure on my opponent's 1/2, but it will set up our draws. I mean, yeah, there's no reason to Shore Up here, I think. Because if I Shore Up, I'm still not attacking into a 4/4 anyway. Ooh, wow. Yep, very glad I still have a Shore Up here. Hoping no Essence Scatter. They could have one. I think their only opportunity to scatter was the turn before they played a Wrath, so since they were going to Wrath, they didn't want to scatter anyway. If I play Vohar, basically not doing anything, yeah, go for it. Fingers crossed. Alright, no scatter. Pass the turn. Could play Vohar for 1 mana now by paying 2 life. And I'm at 20, so that seems like a fine thing to do. I'll take 4 here. I don't want to get got by a removal spell by blocking and trying to shore up on block. And I definitely win the race if I just attack back into them, and I can protect everything I have on board. I'm not going to spend my 1 blue mana when I have shore up in hand, so we're just never going to cast this Vohar. Opponent's down to 6 now. We've got a Lightning Strike, an Essence Scatter, a shore up. Feels like we're in a very good position. Especially with a 4/4 Menace that can give another creature menace, potentially, on attacks. Okay, don't want to Lightning Strike the face here, so if either creature gets in, it's lethal, and then I can still spend all my mana on whatever. A little risky here, because then if I don't kill them, and I end up needing to have killed a creature, it's going to be really bad. Urktide Scorn. Alright, well, we pulled a counterspell out of their hand and soaked up some of their mana. Ooh, I wish I had another blue source. I don't love casting Vohar here and not holding up a shore up. Even though casting Vohar represents lethal, plays rough against a Heirloom Battle Hymn or something for my opponent, so I'm just going to hit with Defiler exclusively. Because nothing can go wrong if I hold up shore up. Alright, and they're just going to scoop them up. So I would have just killed them that turn if I cast Vohar, but I wanted to play it really safe. Because by just holding up shore up, if our opponent's out here is a removal spell, I shore up and counter it. If their out is a good blocker, a good creature spell, I scatter it. I guess if they had like a second Wrath effect or something, that would be bad, but I would still win because they'd be at 2 life, they'd kill every creature including their own, and then I could return this as a 2/1 during their end step and then attack for 2. So yeah, we were good. Plus we could just play Vohar and recast Lightning Strike on a later turn, so I like just holding up all these instants, and no matter what happens, we have a way to find lethal the turn after that. Whereas, yeah, again, if my opponent had top-decked Heirloom Battle Hymn on their last turn, it could have been a position where then I tap out for the Vohar, I tap the blue source, play it, give that +1/+1, attack both, and then they get to blow up Defiler, and my shore up doesn't get to do anything. And I've lost my main threat, and now I can't attack into the Frostfist Strider anymore. So, I don't know, probably overly safe, probably didn't need to do that. But it'll find us the win anyway. We're going to be at 1,400 gems in 3 packs, pretty much breaking even, but if we get one more win here, we're going to be in the money. So let's see if we can do that as we head into Game 7. This hand is a definite keep. It has our splash colors, the colors that we have the least amount of sources of, the red and green. Plus it has a way, the Impulse, to help find the black source for these cards. With 8 black sources in the deck, Impulse is quite likely to get us there. Ridgeline into Island turn 2, just getting the tapped source out of the way. Drawing all 3 of our green sources is a little bit awkward, but it should be fine if Impulse finds us a black source. Playing against red, white, and black Mardu. Goblin Picker and Banalish Faithbonder are the first couple plays, just a 2/2 and a 1/3 Vigilance in list. We do hit a black source. I'd like the untapped one for Shadow Prophecy. Don't love taking damage here. But I think it's important to just dig, especially because it's going to dig 4 cards deep, and Essence Scatter was a lovely draw. Now I could just Essence Scatter if they play like a really good 4-mana creature after they play land for turn. And I don't have to lose any life to cast an Essence Scatter. So down to 15. Goblin Picker. We know Choking Miasma's on the bottom of our library, but we can maybe get our 5 damage to everything Wrath. I need another red source for that though, but I am digging 4 cards deep. Oh dear. Necromancer is definitely going to be a bit cheaper. Terror is a tiny bit cheaper too, because we'll have 2 instants in grave. So we take Terror, Necromancer, let Diminish. We definitely put Diminished Returner in the grave. Yeah, I think it's Necromancer Terror here. Talus Lookout is the draw. Can't play an Urg because I do not have my second black source. So I can play a Talus Lookout or a Namata. Talus Lookout plays better against removal, and they've cast no removal all game because I played no creatures all game. So we'll play the card that plays better against removal, and it still threatens to kill one of their attackers even if they don't have a removal spell. Plus this helps me dig for that potential Wrath effect. Again, I would need to hit another red source and the Wrath, but maybe we can get there. And if I just disincentivize attacks here, I could just slowly but surely stabilize, because I've got some very big creatures here that will be hard for them to attack into. So they are going to go ahead and use a removal spell on the Lookout, so very happy I didn't play Namata. And there's the Wrath. I could grab the second. That's actually a really hard choice. I can guarantee I have Urg mana, or I can just get the Wrath for as soon as I hit another red source. I think the Wrath is just going to be better, just more impactful. We just have to wait for another red source. But that would really win us the game here, if we can get another red. Okay. Now I can cast the Writhing Necromancer. I think I'm still playing around removal at this current point. So I play Aquifer and Necromancer. Next turn I have the mana to play Namata and hold up an Essence Scatter. And then if we don't cast Essence Scatter, I can use the 2 mana to return Diminished Returner. Alright, opponent's digging with the Goblin Pickers, looking for ways to get through a Necromancer now. Pretty nice, starting to feel a little stable here. Even if they find removal for Necromancer, we're only taking 1 damage this turn now. Baird is very good with Benalish Faithbonder. We really want that red source now, because if they start getting an extra 1/1 every turn, they're going to get to a very wide board state. Phyrexian Rager, painful to lose a life here, but all in all, still probably worth it, because we're really just digging for a red source over anything. I could also Namata and hold up Essence Scatter. Then I have pretty good blockers. They can attack with an Enlisted Faithbonder, but Necromancer is still big enough to block it without dying, so they don't have great attacks against just Namata hold up Scatter. So you know what? I'm actually going to do that. Oop. Oh, I can't Namata hold up Scatter. I need another black source. I mean, I can Namata hold up Scatter, but I can't Namata and hold up Scatter or Returner. Which was like the really spicy line that I wanted. Which is unfortunate. I just don't have 3 black sources like I would need to hold up the Diminished Returner. But I can still hold up Scatter, so we're still pretty safe against creatures. Alright, the Goblin Pickers are digging. They've gotten them out of a lot of flood. Wow. 4 lands in grave. Five lands discarded now. They've dug through 10 lands out of their deck already. 11? That's a lot. I do have a reach blocker. I think I am going to scatter, though, because then if they play like Captain's Call or anything like that, I'm definitely not chump blocking with Namata, and we don't know when we're going to hit the next red source. So while, yeah, the plan would be blow up everything, including the flyer with Firestorm, I don't know that I'm going to have the red source anytime soon to do that. Play a Phyrexian Rager, see if we can hit the red source or another black source. We get another Necromancer, which I think I will just play. And this makes it safe to attack with the first one. Start trying to lower our opponent's life total and actually find a way to win this game instead of just survive. Okay. honestly, Terror is probably better. Our opponent's creatures are small enough that Death Touch does not matter, but the Ward could. Forces them to spend even more mana if they want to kill it. But since they're both the exact same mana cost, I think Terror is a little bit better on the board. Tiana, there's another flyer. And another flyer, well, just 2 flyers there this turn. That's very bad for us. We have the board wipe now. And we have the mana to kick it once. So we're going to lean into that. We're going to Namada on blocks. Because I'm leaning into the board wipe, I don't want to play any more creatures, I think. We're going to have to take 2 next turn off the flyers. And then we're going to wipe the board except for probably Namada as the one card that's going to stay. Unless Namada dies in combat here. If they have a removal spell for Namada, we're very close to dead. Because I go block, 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 take a lot in the sky. Alright, another creature. Very happy to see that. That's just another card to wipe off the board with the Firestorm. And our opponent is not even going to chip in for some damage here with the flyers because they will lose one to Namada. So let's wipe this board, shall we? One mana Necromass seems good. Auto Tapper got us a little bit there. We could have held up double black for Returner. Okay, they've got an Electrostatic Infantry. I can play plenty of blockers for that, so let's just try to close this game out quickly here while our opponent is playing off the top. Give them as few opportunities to draw into something great as possible. Scry 1. Impulse? I'll keep Impulse, that lets us dig. Here's Urg, and off of Crystal Grotto we'll play the Knight of Dusk's Shadow. So we still have 2 blockers for this infantry. So they can't jam in for a bunch just by playing like 1 removal spell. Alright, Faithbonder, 1 creature here. They're down to 13. They do not have enough power to kill Namata, so we get to attack with pretty much everybody again. Although now I don't have more creatures to play it safe. So I'm probably holding back Urg, because it's only threatening 1 more damage to them and they can block it quite easily. We're going to go ahead and Impulse pre-combat. Essence Scatter, Lightning Strike. Lightning Strike is huge. Probably find a kill on them like immediately. We attack with these 2. Yeah, we'll play it real safe, hold up these blockers, pick up a Returner and have a Lightning Strike up. 8 damage is not going to be lethal, even with a Lightning Strike, but it is close. They have 1 final draw step. They are definitely dead next turn. And they are going to scoop them up there, very close to just dead on board, so that is going to end that game. That's going to push us up into Diamond Tier 4, and we're going to be 5-2 now, guaranteeing we get a bit of value out of this event. We're leaving with more gems than we started with, plus keeping everything we drafted as well as 4 bonus packs, so very, very nice. Here we are now in Game 8. We do have our blue source and our red source, so we get to hold up an Essence Scatter and a Lightning Strike here, but we need double black for a Turner. We really need a Swamp to get anywhere with this hand, so we're not playing a threat of our own. This seems risky enough to mulligan here, unfortunately. This looks a bit better for sure. We have the blue source still, but it's only for a shore up. We still don't have the double black for Returner. We definitely get rid of Firestorm here. Any single land gets us to Namada with a potential shore up to back it up. A Swamp lets us cast more spells. It's not actually better. It's pretty much just as bad. But going down to 5 cards is like, even if our mana in a 5-card hand is perfect, we're down 2 cards to start the game, which is rough. I think I'm going to keep this one. I'm not super happy about it. That is one of our biggest flaws in the deck, is definitely the mana base, but yeah, we'll see. We did immediately draw the Swamp, so this hand looks dramatically better than our first hand now. Now that we hit a swamp. Plus, we have a 2-drop now. Okay, we just drew perfectly this game. Now we get to curve out a bit. Opponent's going to start with Resolute Reinforcements, which is a good response to Knight of Dusk's Shadow. Anointed Peacekeeper. Alright, well, we're dead. Opponent is just a Boros aggro deck, and they are going to slow us down too much. We're not straight up dead. We do have outs if we can hit cards like our board wipes. If I can hit double red and hit the 5 to everything board wipe, that can still really turn the game around in a matchup like this. So there's a possibility there. They're choosing between Returner and Namada here, I'm guessing. It says as it enters the battlefield, so I don't know if they're looking at our hand right now or if once it hits the battlefield, that's when they're looking at it. I think they're looking right now. Yeah, they look while it's on the stack. So we are not casting Namada anytime soon. We'll just cast a Returner. The opponent has an excellent aggressive curve here, reinforcements into Peacekeeper. Hopefully not too much to follow up on that. That's where we would really just be straight up dead here, is if they just go 2-drop, 3-drop, 4-drop, or 2-drop, 3-drop, and then 2 2-drops. They just flat out the board. They did go 2-drop, 3-drop, 4-drop. Okay. This is really bad. This is really, really bad. They know my hand, so they know my tricks. I'm not going to accomplish much going into combat here. I just need to hold blocks. Alright, at least they can't really attack in. It's everything I've got going on here. I'll play the forest and pass. If the information were all public or all private, it would be better to play the island and pass, but the fact that the forest was public information means I like just playing the forest here so my opponent doesn't know 2 of the cards that I've drawn. And the reason playing the island would be better is because then I can cast Impulse and Shore Up in the same turn if I need to. Now if I have to cast this Shore Up to save one of my creatures, I won't be able to cast Impulse this turn. Keldon Strike Team kicked? Yeah, we're just gonna lose. We're mega dead. Really got the curve on us. They don't even need a heroic charge to kill us at this point. We are just in a bad place. Could double pump the Knight to kill that without losing a creature. I could Shore Up there to keep this on board so I don't have to replay it tapped. And I do have the mana to do all of that, so that is the best line. And then Namada's only going to cost 4 next turn, so I could play Namada and Shore Up. And Impulse, getting my cards mixed up here. Much as I'd love to keep Shore Up for Namada, I can't really lose more creatures right now. The Impulse before the Namada, I think. Although, what are the odds I hit something that costs 4 or less that I want to play more than Namada? Actually, somewhat high. If I hit a Choking Miasma here, 100% that's getting cast. 100%. Yeah, Impulse, try to hit Choking Miasma. That would straight up win us the game. Alright, no Choking Miasma. Yeah, -2/-2 to everybody right now, and put a +1/+1 counter on one of our creatures. We would lose nothing, and they'd lose literally everything. We're probably getting Heroic Charge next turn. I don't have enough creatures for Writhing Necromass. No, I have no creatures in grave. But I could cast it the turn after this Namada, so I guess we take it over Scatter, because I can't even hold up Scatter anyway. Alright. Likely dying to a Heroic Charge. But surprisingly enough, we did have a pretty big out there. That would have been an incredible turn of events there if we hit the -2/-2 to all creatures off that Impulse. That would have been absolutely beautiful. I guess if they don't attack at all, we actually can't cast Necromass next turn. Alright, let's see what's happening here. We have to just block the most damage, which means they're letting Namada die here to a trick. But if they had a trick, they would just kill us instead, right? The only trick they could have that would kill Namada and not us would be... Take Up the Shield doesn't even kill Namada. Be the +2, -2 trick. Yeah, there's like only one trick in the game that kills Namada but not us. Most tricks, they would just +3/+0 to a 1/1 and kill us. Or +2/+0 to everybody. Or +2/+1 to everybody. Yeah. We were mega incredible dead there. Kind of surprised with the amount of time before they went for the attack there. I thought we had a chance, but we really did not. We were incredible mega dead. So we had one opportunity to get out of that game, and that was if we could draw into the -2/-2 board wipe. That would have been completely devastating to our opponent, and I think that would have given us a solid lead on the game to have very low chance of losing after that. So that would have been a really cool, like, full 180, but started the game on the back foot, ended the game on the back foot, just dying to the nice Boros aggro deck that can punish these slower decks like this one that play a lot of tap lands to splash a bunch of stuff and play a bunch of just random slower bombs. So good beats from our final opponent. 5-3 is going to be the final record. Pretty happy with everything in the deck. It was really, it was a pretty fun one. Everything served its purpose. The Wraths were great. The board wipes. The counterspells were solid. The impulse was solid. Everything worked pretty well. Really liked the big 5/5s. Those were huge all the time. Namada most often just died the second it touched the board, but that's just the kind of bomb it is. It's like, you need to kill me or die, so solid record this time around. We're going to get 1,600 gems and 4 packs out of the event. We are in the money, leaving with more gems than we entered and a bunch of packs to boot. So that is going to end today's video. As always, if you enjoyed this video and you'd like to see more like this, make sure to stick around on the channel. You can like, comment, and subscribe if you want the YouTube algorithm to send you some more of these videos in your recommended feeds. We've got more great variety draft content coming throughout the month. The next set coming back is Streets of New Capenna rebalanced, so some commons and uncommons in the set have been buffed, some of them have been nerfed, so that'll be interesting to see how it plays. Then we have Throne of Eldraine Premier drafts after that, and some Crimson Vow quick drafts potentially as well. So cool stuff on the horizon. Stay tuned for that if you're interested. And as always, thank you very much for watching, and I'll see you soon for some more Magic Arena.